I know the kind of stuff you like to see. You want to see action. You want to see danger. And you want to see guys with chainsaws in trees. Master climbers at work. How about crane jobs? Difficult rigging. And big wood. Heavy equipment. And limbs flying through the air. And if you've been with me for a long time, you know that I've shown a lot of that kind of stuff in the past. And if you guys are here to watch that kind of video, the exciting stuff, I'm going to put a playlist in the comments section that shows you a lot of the exciting videos. But this video is more about making tree decisions on smaller trees and some of the general work. You know, it's not always the big bad stuff that we get into. A lot of the stuff is just as interesting. But you know, I do all kinds of jobs, including small trees. And a lot of the small tree jobs, I believe, are quite interesting. Let's take this little tree here, for example. This client planted this tree years ago as a Christmas tree that they wanted to decorate every year. Well, it got out of hand. About 5 years ago, I shaped it, and they hadn't touched it again. And look at what the top has done. It's no longer a nice, formal-looking Christmas tree. They don't want a big tree in the front yard. They want to keep it small. So first thing I did was put down burlaps because there's going to be lots and lots of tiny needles in their new landscaping. And I thought, well, that'll clean it up a lot faster. And much of the work that I did on this tree was actually with a hedge trimmer. And you know, like I said, we get all different kinds of jobs, so we have to be equipped to handle, you know, even things like hedges and fine shaping. Sometimes we get into a little bit of topiary work. Every job is different, but that's what makes my job so interesting. So we've done the outside shaping first up to the top, and I'm preparing to get up there with the bucket truck. You can see there was a lot of really, really hard cuts. But, you know, when the option is, you know, either cut it back hard or take the tree out, and because this is pruning for a purpose, you know, I'll do it. I found the old star up there, so I opted to put it in the top of the tree. And there was a lot of lights still back in there. I had to cut out the old lights. They'll never work again. So they're going to have to restring it next year. But there's the tarps I was talking about. And it was almost a brand new re-landscaped front yard with rocks and tan bark and all kinds of difficult cleanup areas. So that couple of minutes it took me to lay down the tarps was huge. I mean, it made such a difference. And it's one thing to blow off the rocks, but blowing the tan bark, that's really hard because the brush that falls into the tan bark, it weighs about the same as the tan bark. So, you know, it's really hard to blow out areas like this. And because this was brand new, I wanted to leave it as pristine as possible. And there's what it looks like at the end. Well, I told you guys I've got the new Insta360 camera, and I wanted to show you a little bit about what I can do with it. These are ginkgo trees, and this camera is almost like having a drone. But you can't do this with a drone. You know, I thoroughly enjoy going up high in the bucket and looking around my area and doing kind of an aerial tree inspection of what we've got in the area that I live. This is Saratoga, close to Los Gatos, part of the Silicon Valley, and we've got a lot of redwood trees and conifers. This up here is a deodar cedar. Starting to turn a little bit yellow. It's not quite the right color. This redwood's looking really healthy, really full. Interestingly, let's look at that one over there. That one over there lost its top. It was either topped by a tree guy or the wind blew it out. And if you look at the shape, you see that at the very top the branches are kind of growing wider than they should. Now if you contrast that with a appropriate redwood tree that has more of a conical shape all the way up, you can see why topping a redwood tree creates abnormal foliage and abnormal branch structure. And those branches just become more elongated than they should, and because they're so high up, those branches are prone to breaking in the wind. Now let's do a little bit more exploring around. There's a couple of more redwood trees. That one on the left there doesn't look so good. Looks like it's either dying or something happened to it. But there's more redwoods over in the back there. And more redwoods over here. There's a nice looking redwood. Well, look at how healthy that redwood is. Really full and nice. That one over there has got multiple tops. And it was either topped at one time or something happened. But you can also see that because of that high spot up there, these lower branches are elongated more than they would normally. You know, compare that to that one right there. You see how that's got a real nice conical balance all the way up? That's what a redwood tree should do. There's a good one. There's some good ones around here. There's a lot of really nice trees in our area, but when a homeowner gets afraid of their trees and they say, oh, the tree is too tall, top it, make it small, and an uneducated tree guy comes along and says, I'll do whatever you pay me to do, then you create a problem. You create a tree that grows abnormally. And especially with a tree like a redwood, you know, these trees are meant to be shaped exactly like this, you know, nice conical shape all the way up, and the tops kind of conform to, you know, a nice balanced single leader. That's important. Okay, once in a while I get into a client who is a stickler about keeping their trees smaller, and this is a purple leaf flowering plum. So what I'm doing today is, first off, I'm dealing with what the gardeners have done in the past, and they cut it back really hard all the way around, so it's thrown out all these long shoots. So what I'm doing is I'm going up there and thinning out the number of shoots, taking out a third to half of them all the way around, and then the remaining ones I'm just sort of rounding those over, but leaving, you know, a foot to 2 feet of new areas so it'll immediately bud out. You know, people that cut their trees back hard every single year, it's got to promote all sorts of new water sprouts, and the water sprouts, you know, they don't come out immediately in the springtime. So I like it so that when it comes back to life, it looks nice and full. You know, training and recognizing problems before they become big problems is an important part of arboriculture. And here we've got two branches that are clearly rubbing on each other, so one of them should go. I'm thinking probably the lower one, because that's not going to leave as big a hole, but in time that's going to cause an abrasion on both of these, and this one is more of a dominant, and I think that makes a lot more sense. Looking at the inner structure of the tree, there's a nice balance here. I've been taking out a lot of the inside water sprouts. Still got a few more over here I need to take out. It's not a very big tree, but it's crowded. There's an interesting little bit here. This was way too crowded. I took that out last year. Let's see if I can focus on that. And it was because they were growing too tight, and it was growing right up through the middle. It was a long straight shoot, and it opened up the interior of this tree. So it is what it is, but you can certainly make it better. it's gone. I didn't make a flush cut. I retained the branch collar. Even on small branches, you have to remember to retain the branch collar whenever possible. The inside is thinned out. We got a rubbing branch right here, and I think I'm going to take it because it's rubbing here and it's rubbing here. So this one right here, it's going to leave a little bit of a hole over there, but if I don't do it now, the future of this is going to be a problem. Nice clean cut, no tears, which is important. You can see where it was rubbing right here and over here. In time, that would have abraded through, and this whole limb and this whole limb would have been damaged by the growth of the tree. There's that tight one I was talking about. That clearly was a mistake. I took it out because that's a hard one to get it all the way out of there. So it's going to eventually absorb that, but that should have been taken out when the tree was really young. Okay, so here's where the gardener initially cut the tree hard. I'm saying gardener, it could have been a tree company, but the way that these cuts are done, it looks like it was all done with a pole pruner from the ground. There's a dead stub there. And all these hard top cuts resulted in all this new secondary growth. And the secondary growth is excessive. Now, she really wants to keep this tree small, so I'm cutting them back, and all of these bits of growth that came off of the hard cuts are loaded with buds. And come springtime, in a couple of months, every one of these small pieces is going to erupt with new growth. And the tree will look nice and full almost instantaneously. We have a 16-foot aluminum ladder that we quite often will get clear up on the top. It's a really valuable tool because you can carry it in the backyard or work in tight areas where you can't get access with a lift truck or a bucket. Now, in the same breath, they've planted a few more over here. This one's a fairly young tree, and it was staked over on this side, but the stake is no longer holding anything, so it's kind of leaning. Now, unfortunately, what we've got here is we've got the standard goes all the way up, and we've got a water sprout that came off of the side here. See that's growing over there? This water sprout on the side is growing so that it's going to end up crowding. And as this trunk and this trunk get bigger, at some point in time, they're going to push each other apart and cause a split. And at that point, this half, the water sprouts will become half of the tree. So my recommendation for this, and I'll probably want to talk to her, is to cut that out completely and then put a tie on this and pull it over while it's still young, maybe tie it to the fence over here and see if we can counteract it a little bit. And when I try to straighten out a young tree, I don't make it just straight. I try to do it over and leave it for a year, and then when you untie it, then it comes up almost straight. It's a bit of a challenge here, but if you look at the way this tree was developed, you know, it's a long standard, and then all the growth comes from here, but this one is a mistake. That should come out of there. And immediately it's going to make the tree look like half a tree because now all the foliage is over on this side. But for the long-term training of this tree, if you want this tree to evolve and become something a little bit more significant, that will eventually evolve into a problem. Now, unfortunately, this should have been straightened out when it was younger, and the pole wouldn't be causing root damage. Which is, when I see the soil cracking like that, there's only so much I can do. That puts me between a rock and a hard place, because if I cut this off now, I'm not going to be able to straighten this trunk out very well without breaking the roots. So that'll leave it looking pretty one-sided. If I don't do it, that's going to evolve into a problem. There's rubbing up here already. But as you can see, this and this now comprise half of the tree. I better talk to her about it and let her help me on the decision so she doesn't come out and say, "What did you do?" Well, I did speak to the property owner and she agreed with me, and it actually came out a little better than I expected. All right, as I told you, I'm still learning about how to use this 360 camera. And what I did was I tied the camera stick, the selfie type stick, to the top of the ladder. And in the editing process, I'm able to rotate around and get all the different shots. It's almost like I've got a cameraman up here, but I'm doing this all by myself. So you're going to see more and more of my videos where I'm showing how I'm doing the work. Whereas before, it was hard to hold the camera and do something. There we go with another one of those oddball, small, tiny world shots. But I think they're kind of cool. They're kind of fun. I like playing with this new technology and seeing what it's capable of. This is also with that same camera, but this is on more of a fixed follow me mode. It's tied to the top of the ladder again. I put it in a different angle. It's kind of cool. And I got a crepe myrtle in the backyard, and she definitely wants to keep this smaller. And I kind of understand it. The species is going to be far too big for this little backyard. It does offer some nice shade, but she had the gardeners cut it last time, and they just shear cut it all the way over. So now there's these long straight shoots. Looks like it's been about 2 years since it's been cut back hard. And in 2 years' time, it's grown about 6 feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go about a foot above the old cuts and leave lots and lots of buds, kind of like I did with that purple leaf plum out in the front. Not my favorite way to trim these trees, but sometimes you got to go against the proper arboricultural standards to allow people to live with their tree. When the option is cut it down, you cut it hard. And just like the flowering plum, we've got some bark rubbing problems down here and down here. So my decision is going to be, which one should I take out? And I think I want to leave this one and take this one out. And if you look at it, it comprises a couple of nice pieces right up through the middle, but I think we could get away with it, getting that out of there. And when you're pruning a tree, it's always good to get rid of all the the mistake branches or the rubbing branches. Get rid of all of those first, because you don't want to go up there and prune the top down and spend all the time cutting it on the top only to cut it out of there. You're doing things twice. So let me go get my chainsaw and I'll get that out of there. Got to be very careful on something like this that you don't nick and create more of a problem. So I got to make some really careful cuts. I'll probably cut it here first and cut it here and let it slide out and around. You can also do damage, when you're pulling the branches out. And then finally down low on the ground, I'll make that cut too. Now this is kind of cool. This is where a branch got caught in a crotch, and the bark actually rubbed and it grafted, so it became one. And here's where I took out the limb that I felt was a problem and was rubbing. And it came out looking pretty good. A crepe myrtle is, in my mind, a very sensuous wood to touch. I mean, it's just so smooth and so pleasant. The bigger ones are actually really nice to climb because it just feels great in your hands. It's got what's known as an exfoliating bark. Every year it sheds the bark, and I like to peel the old stuff off. Water for irrigation is quite expensive, and in our area, a lot of people are converting to these drip systems. Now, there's pros and cons. On the positive side, they're great for young plantings, but a lot of people leave them in, and in many cases, they're right on the trunk of the tree, which is the wrong spot to put these they should be moved. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting them out where the new roots have developed, not on the trunk. And in this case, there really should be more. There should be at least 3. There's a little unit over there. They should put another one in. But even still, that's just not enough water. So if you've got young guys that you're trying to train how to make tree decisions, please share this video with them. I think they can learn something by following along with what I'm talking about and why I'm making my decisions. Now, I'm not saying that I'm always right, but by explaining the processes of what I'm thinking and why I'm pruning the trees the way I do, for a young person learning, I think it can go a long way. So, hey, thanks so much for sticking with me on this long video. I hope you learned something. I hope you found this valuable, but help me out. Please subscribe. Please, the routine. Comment. I like the comments. And hit that like button. Thank you.